Hi guys, it's Luton here, and today it's really great. I've got a fantastic podcast for you from the guys at Q Games and Pixeljunk, and I'm going to be joined today by John, Rowan, and Andy. John works as the kind of what is your role, John?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I do PR here and production stuff and translating when they want bootleg translations and I set up stuff like this.
Okay, awesome. And Rowan, he was a boss designer and worked on Shooter 2, so he's done a lot of work there. Andy worked on level design, did level design for Shooter 2, and a lot of other stuff as well. So it's great to have you guys. Thanks for this opportunity. First off, let's just start by talking about the design. Now, the design of the shooter games and pretty much all of your games, they're hugely creative, and they're such a joy for me to play through. All of your titles like Eden, Monsters and Shooter. What are the kind of inspirations that you get when you're looking to create a title, any of these titles, but obviously we're talking mainly around Shooter and so on. What's your sort of starting point, and where would you grab ideas from?
I have to be honest that I wasn't the lead designer or anything like that. I was doing stage design on Shooter. So a lot of the things we had like gameplay mechanics already in there, and I was just kind of taking these mechanics and trying to make interesting stages with them.
Yeah.
The Shooter sort of started from the fluid simulation, didn't it? I mean, that's a case where we had tech first before we had the idea, and then the idea came from the tech. I think of this is a fun thing, we should make a game revolving around it.
Yeah.
I think with Shooter, the original idea was more like just plain old, you fly a ship through tunnels and things. It was more like we were thinking of having slower ship controls as well, more like what's that game, Gravity Crash. So we were thinking something more like that. But then Dylan said, "Well, this isn't very that interesting. So we want to add something new that can only be done on PS3." And so we came up with the idea of the fluids, and then that went in, and we found out we can do a lot more interesting things when we have the fluids. And I think even we could have still done a hell of a lot more than what we actually did with Shooter 1 and 2.
Because, I mean, they're quite complex games in themselves, the way you have a lot of physics elements going on there, and the fluids, like you say, the liquids are really quite an interesting part of that, the way they kind of interact with one another. I mean, that's something that I always love, the way that things can change state. So you go from solid to liquid, the gas and the acid and things, the way things can catch and burn on fire. Was that quite hard to do in terms of developing it for the game? Let's go to Andy for that one. I mean, or who's best suited to answer that question.
I don't think it was that hard actually, because we had kind of the game rules were quite loose. I don't know how to describe it. But as far as programming went, I don't know anything about that, but I think it was quite a tricky challenge to get that all working nicely. I mean, they optimized it quite a lot towards the end of Shooter 1. And then for Shooter 2, we added lots more fluids and more faster action and all this other stuff, so they had to optimize it even further.
Didn't Jamin do a SIGGRAPH talk on the fluid system and optimizing it for the SPU last year? So there is some fairly unique custom work going on under the hood, which is why it's definitely only possible on PS3.
Yeah, we joke about Shooter being ported to other things like the Vita or Steam or something,
or John's wristwatch,
or my wristwatch yesterday. But the fluid system in that game is just so wrapped around the PS3. It'll be whoever wants to undertake that is going to have a monumental task on their hands.
And I think it'd be fair to say as well that mechanics, they're quite a consistently important element in your games. This combination of kind of puzzle solving and physics is something that I always enjoyed hugely. Is that a feature that you intentionally feature as a strong kind of core element to the games, or is it more of a system that sort of develops naturally when you're creating the story and the levels? Do you come up with kind of level ideas and then think, okay, how can we integrate kind of puzzles and sort of mechanics into that, or is it more that when you start off, you're like, okay, we want these mechanics to be a kind of, this is what the game is going to be about, and then the levels kind of form around that? What do you think about that, guys?
Well, in my 9-10 months here, and I wasn't around for Shooter development or side scroller or anything like that, but just in the time that I've been here, I've noticed that it's very fluid. It's like it goes to, okay, we have these mechanics. What interesting things can we do with them? Oh, hey, I have this idea. Can we have mechanics that would do something like this? So it's kind of a seesaw that goes back and forth. I mean, at least in the experience that I've seen so far, thus far. What do you guys think?
I think on Shooter 2, I did the classic world, the one that's most like the original Shooter. It's kind of like a retake of parts of Shooter, but
the Earth, Fire and Ice and that.
Yeah, because I was doing that world, I had to cram in quite a lot of mechanics that we had from the first game and try and explain them to the player without really explaining, because we don't have very much text explanation of things. So I was trying to introduce things quickly, but in a way that the player could still understand. I don't know if I really succeeded, and certainly with regard to the shooting, the bullet blanket shooting enemies. I think we can.
Bullet blanket.
Well, I don't know that.
There's star
death machines.
I think we might have failed a little bit on that, but
Do you want to explain that? Do you want to explain the star machine thing? Because I know you guys love my playthrough of this and the kind of things surrounding it. Explain about the star machines and the kind of the survivor with that element there, because that's kind of an interesting point.
I think Rowan knows the most about that.
The star machines. For anyone interested, they're called danmaku machines. The Japanese style of the games, the danmaku shooting games, like Dodonpachi and Espa Galuda, Mushihime Sama, that kind of thing. So internally, we call them the danmaku. Just like a little danmaku ball, but
bullet hell.
Yeah, bullet hell shooting dudes. They were fun to make actually. There was a few patterns existing on them, but there was like a cool editor, scripting thing for making the patterns and going in and making all different patterns that kind of chase or track the player or kind of look like they're chasing or tracking you, but they just sort of, leave a little rock opening that you can hide under, or they always leave like a little gap that you can get through and sort of, I think what Andy just mentioned before about trying to introduce new mechanics as well is that Shooter 2 was a little difficult in that sense, because while it's meant to be a sequel to Shooter 1, we also had to assume that someone may be playing that game for the first time without playing Shooter 1. So while we're trying to create an extension on Shooter 1, we also had to kind of reintroduce mechanics again to people, as Andy said, but then make it more interesting than Shooter 1 in the same space of one level, and it got fairly busy in some places, I think.
Yeah. I mean, also, when we're talking about sequels and things, it's kind of interesting because I know that you guys have been quite different with the titles as you've gone along. They've all been quite unique. It's not like you've stayed with one kind of system of working and then changed it in different ways. I mean, when you've got the likes of 4am and Eden and then Monsters and then Shooter as well, and now you're going on with Pixeljunk 1 to 6, they're all quite significantly different. That's obviously a really conscious choice for you guys. Would you like to sort of explain a bit about that, why your titles are so different? I think it's quite interesting, especially when you look at other developers and studios, how their games tend to be fairly similar. They're like, okay, we make racing games or we make shooter games, and you guys are working in a much more kind of creative, often quite experimental way. What's the thinking there behind that?
The gluttons for punishment.
Dylan makes one of the tenets of Pixeljunk that he wants is that we want to do something new every time. We don't want to just make. I think Shooter is the only world or the only universe where we've actually done a sequel.
Yes, that's what I thought too. Yeah.
We don't want to do the same thing again each time. It's about exploring new. The Pixeljunk series is meant to be about exploring those cool retro 2D experiences, and the point, making sequels isn't the point of that. If we made Shooter and the Shooter world, we've explored that now. We've done a Pixeljunk twist or a spin on that, and now we want to make something else, which is why Ink is different again to anything beforehand.
Do you think there's something to be said for producing a piece of work that you're proud of and then just sticking with it and saying we're happy with this and we don't want to keep pushing it forward and forward? I mean, when you think about game series like Resident Evil, where they've had to change it as it goes along to keep it interesting, but the product that they end up now with is so devoid from the original product. I mean, when you look back at the original sort of Resident Evil title, it's so far away from where they are now. In some ways, it kind of ruins the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it ruins the whole series because you've kind of lost that whole element of what people loved in the first place.
You just answered your own question.
Yeah, really? Well, okay. I do have a habit of doing this actually. But is that basically what you'd agree with then?
But you're right. I think that's not to say that sometimes there isn't more room to explore. I think side scroller probably represents that, because side scroller is sort of a side grade. Exploration of the shooting genre by locking the camera in and doing a side-scrolling shooter versus a free twin-stick shooter.
I mean, when we're talking about all these games changing and stuff like this, now, as I say, I've used other titles as an example. Do you feel that it's a bit, a lot of the time developers tend to produce the same games because they know they're quite kind of consistent. They almost can kind of predict how successful a title is going to be. They know it's fairly safe because they know their kind of customer base, etc. They know their audience. They know what they're going to do. And you can apply this to any game series. Do you think is it a risk? Is that something that you guys as a studio are prepared for? This possibility? I mean, it's got to be a possibility that you could produce a title and it would be massively successful, maybe more successful than you possibly imagined, but also there's always going to be the possibility that you produce something that's very, very different to another title and it maybe doesn't do so well. What's your kind of philosophy as a studio behind that kind of thing?
We've had both of those things happen.
Yeah.
We've been really lucky to have titles that have been very, very popular, but we've been lucky because most of our titles are critically all well lauded and appreciated.
Apart from races.
Apart from
a few people like that.
A few people.
Oh yeah. Races.
But so we've been very lucky. I mean, I think I can't speak for other developers, and I'll just speak in generalities here, but I know in a business sense, you want to take the least amount of risks possible because you have 10, 20, 30, sometimes 100 people, working on this product, and you want to continue to keep them employed and continue to be able to do fun things like, experimental titles. So, it's a fine line that you have to walk between letting your inner artist out and keeping it in check with your, business sense.
Pixeljunk is pretty easy though. I mean, we just make games for ourselves, and if other people like them, then they do. It's really not hard for us. I mean, we make games for gamers.
Yeah.
And because we're all gamers, and Dylan's a gamer, and as long as we enjoy the game we're making and we have fun when we play it afterwards, we know that there's a big group of gamers out there that are also going to enjoy it. So,
also, I think I don't think our games are that experimental, aside from 4 AM, which is kind of completely different. But we always try and have one core mechanic or thing that we haven't seen in any other game that we want to do something new. But I mean, Monsters is kind of just a tower defense game, but you control it.
To be fair, Monsters provide a lot of accessibility to tower defense that nothing before Monsters really had. Because I played a lot of Warcraft 3 tower defense, so I had a lot of tower defense experience. And when I came to Monsters, I butted against the rules that it put on you of fixing the mazing and fixing a lot of the stuff. But I think it was the first place where it brought all that accessibility together, and the proof's in the pudding that we always get stories from married couples and girlfriends and boyfriends that are playing it together, and it's been accessible enough that anyone could pick it up and play it. So that was a success for Monsters. I don't think you should. Monsters is still definitely new in that sense.
Down again, just saying.
I
didn't see that off the wall. Then we had the fluid dynamics was the core gimmick, if you want.
Yeah.
That we wanted to bring to that game.
And I think that like we say, the fact that they're quite different throughout, but they have always been based around the PS3. With 1 to 6, you're now going forward into PC for that one. What was the thinking behind going forward to PC? What was the reasons why you chose to create a title now, which is going forward onto PC? And also, can I just ask, what was the main reason why the PS3 was the main platform that you guys started working with? If you do know, if you've got the answer to that one.
Oh, Andy can grab the why we went with PS3 to start with.
Yep.
Actually, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was because Dylan had a good working relationship with Sony, and we were developing. Well, we had a team of a few guys working on the UI of the PlayStation 3, the XMB. They were doing certain parts of that,
Many people don't know that Q Games actually made the what's that wavy thing in the background of the PS3?
Sine wave.
The wave effect. I mean, that's ours.
That's ours.
That's very nice.
And the Earth visualizer as well.
The visualizers inside.
Really?
Maybe some people don't even know that exists.
Yeah.
Those are two of my favourite things about the PS3. Seriously.
You're welcome.
We did we did tech stuff as well.
Yeah.
I guess that
kind of led into that. Huh?
Yeah.
Probably led into Pixeljunk.
A lot of people have these backgrounds for PS3. I just find that kind of garish and awful. So I really like the kind of nice, standard background and stuff. And the Earth visualizer is gorgeous. I don't know if you guys would have seen. I did a podcast with a lot of people. It was like 6 of us, and we talked about the future of gaming. And it was like an hour and a half thing. And I used the visualizer for that entire process.
Stuff the background.
I have to tell you, it was a large file. It was.
So a bit of trivia for you: the HDR glow, which is used in the Earth visualizer, is a similar style of HDR that we use in 4AM on the Odyssey and some of the other visualizers in there. Okay. The way we get the glow, that there's, you've probably seen that rim light kind of edge light effect on the Earth visualizer.
Yeah,
there's parts of that in 4AM because it's all on the PS3, so we can we can still do. Regarding 1.6, which we've actually now renamed, well, it's got a name now. It's called Pixeljunk Inc.
Okay.
We've updated the blog. There's a trailer out now as well that everyone can go and watch if you search for Pixeljunk Inc. The reasoning for Steam for Inc. is, I guess the more people know about Inc., they'll understand that it's a fairly obvious choice for us. We want to be able to update frequently after we release. We want to be able to patch in and iterate and add more content, quickly.
Yeah.
Steam's for that. We want to do the dev blog so that we can have a transparent dev process. That's something that, we can just be completely open and free with that while we're on Steam, because it's, all within our own power. And we want to be able to make modding possible as well. I really want to use the Steam Workshop. So to be able to let people mod and add their own monsters and towers and all that sort of thing, Steam Workshop's there, ready to go. So, there's just so many advantages for using Steam for Inc. These kind of sandbox type games are, I think, perfect on that platform.
When it comes to modding, is that something that you guys feel kind of, what's your kind of stance on it? A lot of people obviously love, you love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Modding.
Are you very happy for, when you look at titles like Minecraft, where they start off with this kind of base foundation of a game, and then it gets put out there, and it almost gets kind of taken over by the amount of mods and...
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it just gets kind of, swamped by the quantity of mods that are out there. When you have kind of modding involved for Inc. when you're going forward with it, is that something that you would love to see people's kind of creativity flourish, or are you scared that it will kind of, take away from the original project?
The ideal situation is that our game gets taken off us. The best case scenario is that that's what you want. Is that the ideal situation is that we create enough of a base platform and that we have our game stolen off us by the players. I would love for that to happen. In fact, we're trying to enable everyone to do that. We're making the scripting and everything as simple as possible, make it really easy for people to make whatever they want, and all power to them.
Do you want to explain? Are you able to explain a little bit about, for people that maybe haven't seen sort of what Inc. is about? I have seen a little bit of what it's about, but if you had to give kind of base description to people, what would you say about it?
So Pixeljunk Inc. is a 2D platforming, how can we say, like open world soup tycoon simulator where you're building a soup empire off-world and exporting soup at the same time as you're defending your base from many monsters, and use all sorts of contraptions and towers and devices to defend your base and go exploring and make soup together with your friends. It's co-op. Co-op is extremely important.
Yeah.
And when you have the co-op feature with it, is it kind of like you have your own base set up and people can kind of hop between them, or how does that feature work?
I think most people will just all work together on one base, like all pitch in and make a mega base. There's nothing stopping you walking off to the left and making your own base.
Yeah.
Except for the third wallet.
Yeah, except for the fact that on this, that's a good point, John. The funds on the server. So if you're exporting soup and you're earning lots of money from selling your soup and destroying the environment around you, all of that money is actually shared on the server. So if you want to make upgrades, like say you want to you've just exported a heap of soup. You need to talk with everyone and say, okay, are we going to upgrade our towers? Are we going to upgrade our generators for better electricity? Do we want to buy new vehicles? Like, you need to all work together and actually discuss, because you're all sharing the same space wallet. Also, your lives are shared as well, is a good point. I don't know if you played much Battletoads back on the like NES, but
Yeah.
that's a good way to lose friends. So we're all about that. But yeah, you actually the lives are shared as well on the server. So if you only have 3 lives and you have 6 people in the server, you better you better build some clone factories and buy some more lives. You can actually buy extra stock, by sell some soup and buy some extra clones, so that in case someone dies, there's some clones left over for them to respawn.
This is completely off topic, but did Battletoads Double Dragon have shared lives also?
Battletoads, man, was brutal. Battletoads was so...
Not Battletoads Double Dragon.
I don't know about that.
There's a
It was a versus game, wasn't
it wasn't versus, it was like
It was
a
like
mashup
it was a
game.
beat 'em up.
Yeah.
It was a beat 'em up mashup game.
That sounds awesome.
Weird.
I'm not imagining
I'm
that.
I'm
right?
gonna go
That was-
Google that afterwards.
That was a real game, wasn't it?
I'm gonna come clean. I missed
Yeah.
out on the NES completely. I was more of an Amiga person. I was playing like weird European computer games back then. I
This-
didn't play Mario until it came out on the Super Famicom.
There's a lot of people that have like, emulators and stuff, but I know there's this. I think it's called the Hype. I don't know if I think the company's called Hyperkin, and they're producing this thing. It's like a kind of console of sorts, but it basically allows you to play all different kinds of cartridges. So you'll be able to play like NES, SNES, Mega Drive, so Genesis or whatever, and you can just slot it all in the same machine. It's just got like 4 slots in the top. It even has a slot in the front for Game Boy cartridges.
Is that Project Unity?
I cannot remember off the top of my head. It's
I was
called
thinking
the.
today where there's a console that has the guts of like 8 or 18 different consoles inside it.
That sounds nice. That
Some
sounds
sort of monstrosity.
I really think that
You could just emulate it on a Raspberry Pi or something like that.
And then have a beautiful LCD screen attached to it and plug in a
Yeah.
USB SNES controller.
Yeah.
I feel a bit frustrated about retro games that they don't get so much. There's so many out there that are still astonishing, and the PSN or Steam or any of these things are perfect for. I mean, these games are so tiny now in size. They're perfect for downloading for people right now. A lot of these games are like barely like 20 meg or something. They're ridiculously small in size because they obviously played on these cartridges, which back in the day were good, but now they're ridiculously small in sort of memory. And there's an insane catalogue of these titles. It would be amazing to see more of them come online. I mean, one that you gotta love playing is like Metal Slug, and you can get that on the PSN and things. There's all these kind of titles. So
Luden, you understand that it's not a technical barrier preventing that from happening. I mean, we all know that it's technically possible.
Oh yeah.
You know that there's someone in a suit somewhere at a
Yes.
table that's stopping it happening. It's got nothing to do with the size
Yeah.
of the game or the difficulty of it.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying that it's it's what I meant was when I say it's perfect it's perfect in terms of the fact that they're so small that almost anybody would be able to download them. Wherever
Yeah.
they were, they're so perfect. You could fit on anything. And it is, it's frustrating as hell that they will only release certain titles. Can't even understand why, because these games came out like 20 years ago, so I don't really understand what the barrier is there. It seems weird to kind of hold back on that, but hopefully in the future they'll sort of open it up.
I think your PS3 should have to be always online when you're playing Tetris.
Shh, don't mention
They said that's not true. They said
don't
that
mention things needing to be always online.
the always online thing is false, apparently.
Is what the 720 thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a moot.
Well, I don't care. My
I'm not
PC
gonna buy
is
one
always
anyway.
online,
Yeah, my PC's always online.
Playing games.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we live in Japan. I have a lot of friends in Australia that don't have the luxury of always being online because we have third world internet in Australia.
They should move.
Yeah, well,
Well,
I did.
Well, Japan is a third world region in terms of getting games because we still don't have Bioshock Infinite. So I
Really?
paid
God,
for
Steam
I-
is, Steam is terrible in Japan. Like for trying to get
Yeah.
oh god, some DRM is just ridiculous. Like it's out in America, it's out in England, and you've got an English account. You have an
Yeah, I
English
have an
credit
English
card.
account, but I can't unlock it because my IP says I'm in Japan.
Japan.
I could just get like a VPN server and play it.
Eng-
I don't know, I don't
English
really wanna do that.
Steam. So we'll go again. English Steam account, English credit card, completely paid for, ready to go. But because you're in Japan, they won't let you double click the EXE,
Yeah,
basically.
Basically.
And then, so your options now are, oh, well, I'll just pay for a VPN, mask my IP, go and do it, or
I could just torrent it and play it now and not feel guilty because I've already paid for it.
And they wonder why
it's
people
too much hassle. So I just wait.
Stuff. I mean, Steam is the right step in the right direction because Steam provides a better service than torrent sites, which is why people use it. So, I mean, Steam's definitely winning, but we're getting screwed over here by region a little bit.
Yeah, other countries have all sorts of problems. It tends to be that the kind of you have like Japan, US, and then Europe, and then a lot of other countries have huge issues with downloading things when they come out at the right time. If they don't come out or they have an issue downloading it, then getting in touch with Sony or whoever they're trying to deal with again is hugely problematic because they maybe don't have an immediate sort of customer service because of whatever country they're in. So yeah, it's a big problem as well. It seems to be that these they focus on these large areas.
That BioShock example as well that Andy gave is like, it's not Steam's fault. Steam is just a platform. Like, they don't have any control over what they can or can't do. It's the publisher that's...
I don't know, sometimes I think Valve should be a little bit stricter on... Something that really pisses me off is external DRM in Steam. So you've already got Steam.
And it wants you to boot Ubiplay or something.
Yeah, the worst is games for Windows Live. I really get pissed off when, like the first time I bought a Steam title that had games for Windows Live, and it just pops up a thing saying you've got to install games for Windows Live. Do you want to do that now? And I do that, and it says, you've got an old version of games. What? I've just installed it. So I have to do an update, and I have to create an account. And then finally I log in, and then the next
Warhammer
time
had that, right? Space Marine? I think that was a good one.
God, I just want it to work. Yeah. That's what.
But that's the thing. Like, if people who torrent stuff, it just works.
Yeah.
Like, you just double click it.
That's a lot of.
You just double click it and it works.
Stuff, I'm sure.
But that's what Steam works. Most of the time now, which is unless as Andy said, some third-party publisher comes in and crams their crap in between Steam and you.
Yeah.
So.
That kind of ties in slightly with a lot of with the way some of the games are going at the moment is the kind of stability of them, because I often find that games can get killed so quickly just by the sort of accessibility, how easily people can get into a game when it comes to things like servers for online games and so on and so on. I mean, when you've only got to look at a lot of recent titles and how they can suffer so badly for it. It tends to be obviously my kind of genre of playing tends to be shooters at the moment, but I mean, what do you guys think about that when we come talking about servers? It seems to be like such a a lot of games now are pretty much going online, or there's huge multiplayer elements with each game that comes out, but this whole issue of kind of stability and actually allowing people to access the games, for something that's such a core element, it seems to be overlooked or underestimated greatly by actual
underestimated
developers,
until your game comes out and then you have hundreds of people or thousands of people on message boards, Twitter, Facebook, and they're complaining that they just paid $60 for your game and they can't play it.
Yeah.
Remember, whatever, like, for example, all right, we'll use the example of SimCity recently. Whatever servers they're running, whatever, setup they have, whatever EA put into it, that was made by the lowest bidder. Every bridge you drive across is made by the lowest bidder for civil engineering. Every building is the lowest bid. It's, the minimum required effort there on EA's part to get, and then once the initial spike has, calmed down, I'm sure it'll be fine. But, the trade-off is, what do? Are they going to spend like quadruple to be able to take care of that initial spike, but then they don't even need 3 of those 4 for the next, the whole lifetime of the game?
It still seems to be a big problem. I mean, for one thing, they have this you have to be constantly online thing, which I know annoys people when we talk about already. I mean, but there's this other issue of the fact that it doesn't save sort of locally, and I know people who have lost whole cities. They've come online and literally their whole city that they've spent ages, weeks working on, they just come online and it's gone. Just literally not there.
You'll be pleased to know for Pixeljunk Inc. for Pixeljunk Inc.
Yes.
The way we're considering the online is it's going to be local hosted. So whoever's running the start of the server host, and then you can just right click and join from your Steam friends list. But the game file is going to be saved locally. I mean, there's other games on Steam that do it the same way as well. So no problems there for Inc.
No, it's a good thing. But I don't even understand why they need to do this kind of full on. You don't even have a local file save. What's the problem with that? It seems strange, but I mean, but this is like I say, it goes to the core point, which is that you could build the best game in the world, like the most fun, exciting game. It has everything that you want in, everybody's really excited about it, and then you put it out there and it falls flat on its face just because they don't have the foundation element in place of stability. And it seems to be something that is such a... I don't even understand like how it can be overlooked so much when it's pretty much one of the most important
It's never
things.
overlooked.
Yeah,
don't ever think it's overlooked.
Yeah.
Any group of devs who are working, pouring their heart and soul into a game, don't ever think it's overlooked.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's just a question of time or budget, or and there were probably, as bad as you think it was, as whatever game was when it came out, God knows what it was like 3 weeks before that, because they would have put down a list of priority to must be fixed things, and it just,
Especially a game with an online component, those guys are very, very. I mean, look at all the stress tests that MMOs do now before they have beta weekend, free access weekend, do this, do that. That they really want to gauge
friends and family beta.
They want to gauge how many people are going to be there for the opening and whether or not they can actually take it.
No, I mean, I remember back in World of Warcraft days when they had like opening ceremonies for different gates or expansions and things like that, and it would be insane. You're talking.
Actually, we should not dive into WoW discussion because Andy's going to get left out. And Andy will be left out of that. So
it's not a good.
home internet connection when that came out. I was in the UK and I was watching my friends playing it at work.
What? You had no? How old are you?
What?
What do you mean didn't have home internet?
I just had no internet at home during that period. I had internet before that.
That was like 2000.
Yeah, but I mean, I just didn't have an internet connection at home.
Okay, fair enough.
How did you live?
I just used the internet at work.
How'd you get your porn?
No, I used to save it all on like my hard drive when I did have an internet connection, so I was just living on the same porn for a few years.
That's a lot of information for people.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can cut
Things
that.
people may or may not have wanted to know about Andy.
In case of emergency porn box.
Yeah.
What is it, in like a glass case?
There's a little hammer on the outside.
There's a little hammer outside the folder.
Right.
The hammer is in the shape of a penis.
Yeah, you hold on to it. You hit it with a ball.
This has gone so far off topic, I don't know how to bring it back now.
Okay.
The thing is that this happens more frequently than you think.
Okay, let's bring it back.
A bunch of guys.
Yeah, male-dominated environment at the moment.
Okay, let's bring it back. Shooter. With Shooter. No, I've got to try and bring it back. Salvage it. With Shooter, as we said, Shooter was one of the only titles that you've done which was pretty much, that had a sequel in place. If you could do a sequel for any of the other series that have been made so far, is there one that you would particularly like to make a sequel for?
Monsters.
Monsters. We should make a dungeon sequel.
We never made an original game.
Shut up. They won't figure it out.
Monsters just so people would be happy.
Yeah, what would you like to do for it? Would you like to go like a completely different world environment?
People would be happy because it would be awesome.
That's the side effect.
And then side effect would be people would be happy. I'm not going to make it just because,
Yeah, you don't have to deal with them.
It would be because it would be fun and awesome.
Would you want it to be like a huge jump forward, or would you want it to be like Pixeljunk Shooter 2, where it's just kind of like a transition? And Shooter 2 was quite a step forward compared to the first game.
You should ask Andy that. Hey, Andy, what do you think
about what?
About Monsters 2?
Oh, I think it'd be great to make a Monsters 2. Actually, I would really like to make one.
4-player co-op.
That was something Dylan was throwing around, the idea of having 4-player co-op.
You are hearing that from the right person. Andy is the man to make it happen.
What? I'm not the man to make it happen.
Please bother him.
Dylan is the man to make anything happen.
Andy drew all of the art at Andy drew all of the art for Monsters, and in fact, Andy's playing it down a bit. Andy drew like all of the art forever for all time.
That's not true.
Oh, okay, sorry. So you did
a lot of stuff with Monsters and a lot of stuff for Shooter.
You did all the art for Monsters. You were the art director for Shooter, so you did the art for Shooter, Shooter 2, and Side Scroller. You've
other people worked on it as well.
Carrying us on your shoulders, Andy. You're like Atlas.
Would you like to do another side scroller, but perhaps in a completely different format? Sort of completely differently stylized and things like that. Because
I'm a big fan of shooting games. I think side scroller turned out to be a fun game, but I I was a little bit sad during development that we didn't make something more ambitious, because I played games like Gradius 5 and R-Type. R-Type Final came out after Delta, but Delta is better than R-Type Final. I'm sorry, but I played all these different shooting games, and I think we made a nice game, but I just think we could have done a bit more with side scroller.
That was an issue with the scoping at the start. Originally side scroller was
Oh, sorry. Originally it was just supposed to be a DLC, but
for Shooter 2, and then some things with Sony about adding DLC for Shooter 2 and package file, and it ended up becoming needing to become its own standalone product.
Yeah, I think the reason was that if it was DLC, they would have had to test the entire game again. Like they have to test Shooter 2 with the DLC installed.
Because that makes sense, right?
Yeah. So I think the DLC caused any problem with the Shooter 2, and it was
just easier to do, basically. It was just...
but then we'd already scoped it as just a DLC. So like Andy says, there was no, ground genre breaking, camera spin or anything, going on. It was kind of, had a lot more content rammed into it. It was
I mean, most scroller shooters tend to be kind of futuristic in an element. It would be kind of interesting to go different areas with that, sort of explore other elements that there could be going on with it. Because a lot of these things, when you think about like, there's just so many to even mention. You've got like the ones that you've already mentioned, like Gradius and that. You've got things like Nemesis that Konami made, and you've got things like Gynog, which were on the Mega Drive, etc. There's just like an endless ton of scroller games, but it'd be I think it's still an area that would be fantastic to explore with the the Pixeljunk studio, the way that you guys create games. I think there's so many different elements when you think about like Eden and how each Eden world was so completely different as well. I mean the mechanics are the same, but the stylization is very different. And with I think that's one thing as well, is that with your games the stylization between levels tends to be so interesting and different. So again, it's just something that would be great to kind of carry on in that style, I think.
Yeah, just when you're getting bored, you get hit with something else. Yeah.
Well, that's because like when we're testing it, if Dylan gets bored, then he's like, well, what the hell? So, while we're playing as well, in order, playing the stages through in a row, if we feel at any point like something's running long in the tooth, then go and make it better.
Yeah, totally.
I think the only thing, also it'd be interesting to hear if you guys, because there's so much that was great about Shooter, but was there any like little things that you wanted to tweak or that weren't quite as you wanted, or were you pretty happy with the end product?
Shooter 2 multiplayer.
If you'd asked me if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I might have be fresh in my memory. I'm sure stuff that we really wanted to put in on the last day, but we couldn't.
There's stuff we wanted to improve, like with the multiplayer for Shooter 2, we felt that after we'd released the game, we were playing the multiplayer a lot.
Oh my god!
And we felt a bit annoyed that we ended up having to wait so long to play between matches.
Yeah, like the downtime and the click number. It was like 8 clicks between finishing and getting to play again, and it was like 1 minute and 40 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Like, it was just too long between matches. You should have just hit a button and go again.
Yeah.
And then that would have, I think, really helped the addictiveness of it catch on a lot more, because it gripped the office fiercely for about a week.
Yeah.
We had, when we were in the last testing phases, we had these little Aquos monitors everywhere around the office. We had about 11 of us, all sitting on the ground and sitting against the wall. Like everywhere we could find space with a PS3 and a monitor. And we were all in the queue, matchmaking, to play that multiplayer. And we all played each other solid for about a week. And that was awesome.
No, it's definitely true. I did get to play the multiplayer for that and it was a lot of fun, I have to say. The only problem that I did have was that when I was playing it online, I did have some people kind of rage quit on me quite a few times, because I saw this. They were just trying to get me every which way, and I got this guy multiple times in a row, and he'd leave the game, and then another one he'd leave the game. I was like, I can't get anyone to play now. It's really annoying. So final question: what are the future ambitions for you guys for Q Games and Pixeljunk? What would you like to see the studio and everything going forward? What would you like to see there?
Ink. Yeah, the only thing I can think about at the moment is getting Pixeljunk Ink into people's hands to play, because we want to play it with everyone. Like, it's the game we wanted to play, and when no one else was making it, we decided to make it. So that's
What sort of timescale? Have you got a timescale for sort of when people maybe have a chance to get on?
We hope to have an alpha in people's hands by the end of this year that should be available on Steam. But ultimately, we don't want to sell it until we feel comfortable taking people's money for it. So
Yep.
it's a classic, it's done when it's done thing. But as soon as possible, we just want to have ink alive and organic and growing with everybody.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a really good philosophy, and I think a lot of people identify with that, because I think that's a major frustration with a lot of games right now, is that people feel they just get pushed out too fast, they're not finished, and then people end up having an unsatisfactory experience. So I
think a lot of people identify with soup.
Soup is one
There's
of
so
my
many
favorite.
different kinds of soup, so it's a great thing for people.
And Andy, what is your favorite flavor of soup?
I was just thinking, actually. I don't really know. I really like cream of mushroom, actually.
I have recently acquired a taste of cream mushroom soup.
Minestrone. Minestrone with a little bit of black peppercorns put in the minestrone while it's cooking gives it a kick.
I really like onion soup as well, actually.
I was like clam chowder.
In general.
Didn't you buy
potato and leek? It's got to be a
Oh,
potato and
potato.
leek, yeah, definitely.
Potato
I
and
think when I
leek.
was a kid, I used to like oxtail soup, but now when I think about it, it makes me feel a bit ill.
Was it real oxtail?
I guess so.
I
It
don't
was
think,
Heinz.
Heinz. I wouldn't say it was real oxtail. It's some variation of meat, something that you probably would be better off
can
to
imagine,
not
like,
ask.
Can you imagine some kind of tail growing out of a petri dish in a lab?
Yeah.
And they just harvest them.
And there's
It's
rows
just,
and rows of potato.
yeah, it's probably not an area you want to explore with your mind. It's what a great note to finish on there with the oxtail thing.
Thanks, Andy.
It's good. All right, I want to thank the guys today for having this conversation with us. I want to thank John, I want to thank Rowan, I want to thank Andy. I'm sure I join everyone in saying we're really looking forward to Pixeljunk Inc. coming out and all the souptastic adventures that we may have. So yeah, I just want to say thanks to you guys.
For anyone that's interested, they can hop on and follow the dev blog that's going on. We
Yep.
post every week, and you have direct access to us, like we're in the comments, talking with people. You
Yep.
can get that at pixeljunk.jp/inc, INC.
Yep, I
And
will
you
add
can-
all the links for everybody, and I'll add the trailer links and stuff like that. So if you guys want to check this out, all the links below in the notes, so you can go and read up on it there. And I'll add anybody who wants to. I'll add their Twitter on there as well. So
Yeah, sure, you can throw our Twitters on there.
Yeah, please follow me. Milky said that if I got 1,000 followers, then we would start making monsters too.
is
How many do you
that a
have?
guaranteed promise then? Is that?
You've got like 500 or something, don't you?
545 or something.
You could get to 1,000 really easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
God,
we
if,
could've-
if I have 1,000, then John should have 1,000. So
Who's gonna make monsters? What the hell, man?
he's put it out there now.
Yeah.
It's a promise. It's
Andy's
been,
the
it's
one-
been,
Andy's
it's been
one of
said.
Andy,
Me and Andy will make it.
actually, yeah, Andy is the one.
We'll make
Andy's
a
the one
monsters
to do it.
board game.
No. Andy could just make it by himself. I'm not even
I'd
joking.
love to try. No, if I could.
With Game Monkey.
Just
No,
project.
yeah.
Unity.
Andy's got it under control.
I think I'd need some help.
Right, we'll wrap it up then. Okay, guys, thanks for today. And yes, as always, guys, can have more Pixeljunk stuff coming up very soon on the channel.
Goodbye, lovely people. Please follow Pixeljunk News.
Oh, goodbye. And thanks for chatting with us, Luton. It was very nice to talk to you.
Thanks for everyone today, and see you next time.